Did you know you are God's masterpiece? And He has a special plan for your life. In today's lesson, we learn that everyone has talents they can use, and God wants us to use those talents for Him. Not only that, but God planned for us to do those good works. In Ephesians 2:10, we read, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do."
Andrew, wait up! Isaac, what's the problem, man? Did I do something wrong? Was my shoelaces that time? No, you were just gonna what? Jump like man, you make me laugh and you make me feel good. Actually, I was just gonna tell you how great you are at playing ball. That sure was the beauty of a home run. Man, did you ever smack that thing right out of the park? Yeah. And did you see the lump on Egbert's head as he's walking down the street? That ball hit him right on the noggin. Poor guy. Looked like he was growing another head. Yeah. I gotta go and practice my heading. See you later, Isaac. Man, I sure wish I could play ball like Andrew. I'm so clumsy I can hardly run or even catch a ball. I can't do anything.
Don't you know that Jesus died, rose again in 3 short days? Isaac, what are you staring at? And your mouth is wide open. Why don't you close it?
I can't.
What do you mean you can't?
I can't close it. I got lockjaw.
Lockjaw? Isn't that where your mouth stays permanently closed? Because you got bit by a dog or stepped on a rusty nail? Isn't that like tetanus?
Come here and just bump me on the head.
What?
Come here and bump me on the head so my mouth will close.
You want me to bump you on the head? Okay, you asked for it.
That's much better.
What happened?
Oh, when I heard you sing so fantastic like, I went, oh, something in my mouth stuck open. Boy, I wish I could sing like you, Kimberly.
But you can sing. Just try it.
You want me to try it? If you're happy and you know, punch your nose. If you're happy and you know, step on your toes.
Okay. I know what Mom did with the money for your singing lessons.
What was that?
She bought earplugs for herself.
Oh.
Surely, Isaac, there must be something you're good at.
No, I can't play ball like Andrew. I can't sing like you. I can't do anything.
You're a really good brother.
I can't do anything. Oh, I can't play ball. I can't sing. I can't do anything.
Isaac, what's the matter?
Oh, my Gran, I can't do anything.
Now, that's not true.
Yes, it is. I can't play ball. I can't sing. I can't do anything.
I was watching and listening to you, and I know something you're very good at.
What is it? What is it? I'm all ears. What did you notice I'm good at?
You don't look like a giant ear, but you're doing it right now.
Well, doing what?
The thing you're so good at.
Like what? Like what am I good at?
Like making people laugh, like encouraging them, like whistling, like being happy. You do that real well.
I do?
Yes, you do.
I can do something. I can make people laugh. I can make them feel good. Say, Gran, do you want to hear a joke? It's about a Gran just like you.
Okay, let's go make some chocolate chip cookies.
I can do something.
loved to play outside. When she came home from school, she'd want to stay outside with her friends. She'd stay outside until it was dark if her parents let her. But her mom knew that it was important for Tabitha to learn how to do things inside the house as well, like cooking and cleaning and sewing. Tabitha did not want to learn how to sew. But her mom said, Tabitha, it is important that you learn how to sew so that you know how to make your own clothes. So Tabitha came into the house. I don't want to sew. And her mom gave her a little piece of cloth and threaded a needle for her and taught her how to make stitches. Tabitha was not happy. Tabitha thought, I hate sewing. And while she sewed, she sang, I hate sewing, I hate sewing, I will never sew when I grow up. And every day after school, Tabitha's mom said, Tabitha, it's time to come in for your sewing lesson. I don't want to sew. I hate sewing. I hate sewing. I will never sew when I grow up. But time passed, and even though Tabitha did not like to sew, she did learn how to sew. Her mom was a very good teacher. So finally she moved on from that little square where she would do stitches in it to actually making clothes. And while she made clothes, she went, I hate sewing, I hate sewing, I will never sew when I grow up. And she decided, I don't want to sew. And her mom said to her, Tabitha, if you want to have new clothes, you're going to have to sew them. Dad and I will buy the material for your clothes, but you have to make your new clothes. Well, Tabitha, she would let her clothes go till they were completely worn out. The hem would be falling down, and her mom would say to her, Tabitha, you have to fix that dress. So she fixed the dress, and she sang, I hate sewing, I hate sewing, I will never sew when I grow up. Well, finally her clothes were really, really ragged, and her mom said, Tabitha, you need to make yourself a new dress. So Tabitha cut out the pattern and she started to sew. I hate sewing, I hate sewing, I will never sew when I grow up. But when she had her new dress on, she got lots of compliments about how nice it looked and how well it fit. And then Tabitha heard, as she grew up a little bit, she heard that there was a neighbor lady. Her husband had died and there was no money for the necessities, and she certainly didn't have money to make some new clothes. So Tabitha's mom said to her, Tabitha, I think it would be a good idea if you maybe made a dress for Mrs. Smith. So that's what Tabitha did. And Tabitha sewed, and I hate sewing, I hate sewing, I will never sew when I grow up. And then she took this dress over to Mrs. Smith, and Mrs. Smith was absolutely delighted with her new dress. And Tabitha thought, you know, when I gave that dress to Mrs. Smith, she was really happy. She really appreciated what I had done for her. Maybe sewing isn't so bad after all, especially if I can help other people. Well, as Tabitha grew up and Tabitha became a young woman, she continued sewing, and she discovered that when she sewed for other people, sewing wasn't so bad after all. So down the street, around the corner, over the bridge, she heard of a family that the dad had died, and there were 3 little children that had no clothes. Well, Tabitha knew what she could do, and she decided to make clothes for those little children. So she started to sew, and her song changed. I like sewing, I like sewing, I think I will sew when I grow up.
she gave those clothes to that family. Then she heard of another lady down the other street and across that bridge and over the little hill. Her husband had died too, and she had no money for clothes. So Tabitha decided to make her some clothes as well. And so she sewed and she sang, "I like sewing, I like sewing, I would like to sew when I grow up." And that's what Tabitha became known for. People knew that Tabitha made good clothes and that she was generous to those who had no money and couldn't afford to pay for those clothes. And Tabitha became well loved and well liked in the community because of all the sewing that she did. Well, one day, Tabitha was sitting in her chair making her sewing, and she just really wasn't feeling very good. But she knew she had promised this dress to somebody, so she's trying to sew, but she got weaker and weaker. And she sang, "I love sewing, I love sewing, but I don't think I'm ever going to grow up." And Tabitha put that dress down and she went to bed. And the next day she still was feeling really, really sick. And she looked over at that dress, and as she laid in her bed, she sang again, "I love sewing, I love sewing, but I don't think I'm ever going to grow up." And then Tabitha died. No, not Tabitha. How could Tabitha have died? She did so much good for people. She sewed for this lady and sewed for that lady, and now she was dead? How could that have happened? And it went through all the town. Did you hear the news? No, what news? Tabitha is dead. What? Tabitha is dead? Not Tabitha. Yes, Tabitha is dead. And before long, the entire town had heard that Tabitha was dead. Well, some of the people heard that Pastor Peter was in another town, and he was over there preaching, and they said, "We need to go and get Pastor Peter." And they ran as fast as they could over to the next town. And they went up to Pastor Peter and they said, "Pastor Peter, you have to come to our town because Tabitha is dead." And Pastor Peter said, "Not Tabitha." Yes, Tabitha is dead. So they ran as fast as they could back to the town where Tabitha lived. And as they were getting close to Tabitha's house, they could hear a loud noise. Oh! And the closer they got to Tabitha's house, the louder the noise got. Ah! And just around the corner from Tabitha's house, the sound was deafening. There was so much caterwauling. Ah! People were crying because Tabitha was dead. Well, they pushed their way through the crowd, and Pastor Peter went up to the room where Tabitha was laying in her bed, and sure enough, Tabitha was dead. Pastor Peter said, "Everybody, get out of the room." Get out of the room? Yes, I want everybody to get out of the room. And he closed the door. Then he got down on his knees and he began to pray. "Oh, Lord." And after he prayed, he stood up and he went over to the bed and he reached out his hand and took Tabitha by the hand, and he said, "Tabitha, get up. Now come on." Tabitha was dead. If your goldfish is dead, you flush it down the toilet. You do not tell a dead person to get up. But that's what he did. She was dead. How on earth was she going to get up? But Pastor Peter took her by the hand and he said, "Tabitha, get up." And do you know what happened? Tabitha got up. What? Tabitha was dead. And now she was back to life again. When Pastor Peter prayed, God brought life back into Tabitha's body, and Tabitha got up. Well, you know what I bet you Tabitha did? I bet you when she got up, she probably had something to eat because maybe she was a little hungry. But then I bet you she went over to her chair by the window and she picked up her needle and that dress that she had been working on, and she sat down and she started to sew and she started to sing. I love sewing. I love sewing. I would like to sew when I grow up. Now, this was a fun story that we told. And the story itself is made up. But the story that is about Tabitha, Tabitha was a real person. And Pastor Peter, that was the Apostle Peter. And Tabitha, the Bible tells us that Tabitha did do wonderful things. And she did make clothes for people, for widows and orphans. That's people whose parents have died. And when two of the townspeople ran to the town where the Apostle Peter was preaching, they said, "You have to come. Tabitha has died." Now, maybe you've heard this story before, but maybe you've heard her called by another name, because she has two names. Her name is Tabitha, and her name is Dorcas. They're both the same name, and our story today called her Tabitha. But you can find the story in the book of Acts, in the New Testament, and she really did die, and Peter really did come and pray for her. And she really did come back to life. And I'm sure that when she came back to life again, she continued on doing the good works that had made her well known in the community before she died.